All right, this is kind of an unusual thing that I've got, but I've got the regulator assembly right here that I pulled off of a salvage car. So I can show, get that out of the way. All right, so I can show how this thing goes on, how it comes off. Boom. Whew. You got a little bit of compressor oil dripped off of it. Okay, so it's the inside Ooh, this one looks good. Well, it's got a little bit of soaked in stuff there. All right. So, then we need to wipe that up. Okay, let's see. Get some compressor oil there. All right, so it's this surface right here that the O-ring seals on. This O-ring here, this one, is not really an O-ring. It's just a dust seal. All right, that just keeps dust out of there. But the problem with this silly thing is that when you're sticking it on there, you can't be doing it at an odd angle. It's got to be square.
Are you on the phone?
Okay, so the sealing surface is this inside diameter right here. That's where the O-ring seals. Your threads are way up here. They don't need to be bottomed out on anything to make the seal happen. The seal actually happens as soon as you stick it on there, before you actually even engage the threads. When you stick this on, boom, right there. When that thing pops in there, the O-ring is in there seating and sealing. It's done. You don't need a bunch of torque on this thing to get it to seal. So that's where I messed up a bunch when I first changed it the first time. It was very difficult because I kept trying to not cross thread, and so I was thinking I was in, and I wasn't. So you have to get in Okay, so this is what it looks like before you've taken it off. So the dust seal is seated all the way against the pressure regulator housing. This socket goes on there almost all the way to that lip. Okay, that's the easy part, unless you don't use the socket and you bend the hex head on there. So the problem with putting this thing back on is that it is so easy to mess up the O-ring. It's hard to happens is the O-ring goes like that. It gets pulled out of the groove because it's not perfectly centered. And then once it's like that, it cocks it sideways and you can't get it in there, and it's a mess. All right, so that's what happens in an exaggerated fashion there. I guess you could do it that bad, but usually it's like as you're putting it in there. Yeah, I think it did it. Let's see. It's hard to see it because it goes back in its shape as soon as you let off. But the trick is to not spin it when you're putting it in. You just get it square, perfectly square. Don't go at an angle. It's got to be perfect. And when it's perfect, it pops in there like that. Yeah, that's not it. All right, yeah, it's hard even when it's off of the car, especially with one hand. But that's how you got to do it when you do it on the car. Okay, that how it popped right in there. That's how it's supposed to be. Whoop, missed it there. Okay, so that's it. It's in. So again, that tricky part, it is, like I was show, I haven't found that freezing this O-ring really makes it that much better. It's just so loose, so loose. It just is, it's just not designed properly. And I've looked at the, I mean, look at that. It is way too loose. All right, so I've looked at the, at my job, we work with high pressure O-ring seals all the time. So I worked with the engineers. We looked at the compression that Parker recommends for the O-rings and all the stretch and different things. And going down to the next smaller size O-ring on the diameter makes it installation a lot easier, but it's not given the proper Parker recommended compression to provide the right seal. So I do not recommend going to the smaller O-ring, even though it works a lot easier on installation. It's not really doing the job correctly. So you have to have this size of O-ring. It's just pitiful the way that they designed this thing. All right, so again, it's got a pop. Oh, there. Oh, man, I almost was able to show how that O-ring pops out of there. There. That's it right there. It's popping out of the groove. So when it does that, you try to stick it in there, it's never going to work because it's not in the groove. But then when you pull it out and you look at it, oh, it's in the groove. It jumps out when it's going in this housing. All right, so again, the main key is to not spin it, and to get it perfectly square, you have to feel where you're at, and it pops like that. So when you push it up in there and it pops in and it stays, I mean, it's in there engaged with just the O-ring. So, and that's it. It goes right on. But when you're standing on your head underneath the car, it's hard to make sure that you're not at some weird angle on this. So you have to just feel. You have to use just what you can feel about making sure it's in a line. And push, don't turn. You can't start doing the threads until the O-ring is engaged and it's into that sealing surface. And then when you could run it just like that, just hand tight. It's not going to fall off. And then that way it'll be way easier when it comes time to take this off next go around. You use that socket, boom, comes right off. That's it. I pulled this one off of a 2010 Civic that was in the salvage.